Canada is frequently marketed to the globe as polite, steady, and predictable. However, that reputation masks a much grittier reality. Underneath the skyscrapers, the universities, and the financial institutions where people deposit their trust, true authority was never established through a ballot box. Instead, it was amassed silently painstaking deal by elite dynasties who grasped a concept few ever do. Nations are defined long before the public catches on. What follows isn't a tribute to riches. It's a chronicle of endurance, drive, and the unseen grip that molded a nation. Decades before the country became a beacon of stability, it was a relentless testing ground. Newcomers landed with nothing but anxiety, discipline, and a refusal to remain insignificant. Some were escaping oppression. Others were hunting for a lucky break. A handful realized that owning land, securing credit, and mastering timing meant more than any title ever could. As administrations turned over and laws evolved, these clans laid bedrock that never shifted. They funded key institutions, secured overlooked assets, and entrenched themselves where leverage grows in the dark. That is how a dynasty becomes indelible, even after their names vanish from the news cycle. Money alone doesn't explain their dominance. Patience does. They never hurried, and they never bragged. They picked sectors that seemed dull at the time: heavy industry, brick-and-mortar retail, logistics. They offered credit when banks closed their doors. They acquired property everyone else disregarded. When disasters struck, economic depressions, market collapses, legal battles, they didn't back down. They doubled down. Every generation absorbed the same mandate: secure survival first, then conquer. This series isn't looking at today's billionaires list. We are tracking the unseen architects who engineered the Canadian economy from the shadows. These are the families whose choices still reverberate through boardrooms, city halls, and skylines. Every powerhouse we profile began with nothing. Every fortune navigated a crisis that could have wiped it out. And every clan on this roster mastered one brutal law of influence: fame is optional, but control is mandatory. Before we start the list, I have a question. Where are you tuning in from? If you are in Canada, type 1 in the comments. If you are watching from the United States, type 2. For anywhere else on the globe, type 3. Also, if you want to catch the next chapter, hit that subscribe button right now. All dynasties start somewhere, and in Canada, the most resilient power bases often sprouted in overlooked corners. Tiny villages, humble shops, quiet districts nobody connected with clout. That is where the Temperman clan surfaced, not by conquering markets, but by studying human nature. In an era when cash was king and banks determined who had worth, this family spotted an opening in a much more delicate commodity: trust. Their enterprise didn't launch with a master plan or heavy financing. It began with simple handshakes and kitchen table talks. Rather than demanding payment up front, the Tempermans offered credit to laborers who had zero collateral. During times of financial panic, that was a gamble. A single default could have ruined them. Yet, the bet paid off. By linking their own success to their community's survival, they forged a loyalty that outlived both economic slumps and business rivals. This was more than retail. It was social infrastructure masquerading as business, quietly weaving the family into the daily existence of thousands. As financial strain crushed weaker competitors, the Tempermans didn't fold, they evolved. They shifted from peddling goods door to door to establishing brick-and-mortar strongholds in the areas they knew best. Expansion was gradual and deliberate, handed down through generations without sacrificing their founding principles. In their case, power wasn't a product of massive scale, it was a product of consistency. Decades later, their name still commands respect, not because it dominates the press, but because they never turned their backs on their foundation. Restraint is what sets this lineage apart from flashier tycoons. They never sought global hegemony. They aimed for longevity. In the process, they demonstrated a fact often missed: you don't need billions to have pull, just endurance. Their narrative establishes the theme for this entire series. The backbone of Canada's economy wasn't formed overnight, nor was it an accident. It was constructed by families who realized that real power develops in silence and then refuses to budge. Steel is unforgiving. It either holds or it snaps, a reality that defined the Ziegelman saga. When they poured the footing for their empire, success was far from certain. This wasn't a story of inherited ease. It was a collision of pressure, duty, and risk. When the torch passed unexpectedly to the next generation, the company's fate fell into the hands of young men who barely grasped the magnitude of their burden. For this family, pausing to think would have been the end. Rather than playing defense, they went on the attack. They analyzed logistics, profit margins, and market needs with obsessive precision. Steel tubing might seem mundane, but it served as the skeleton for cities sprouting across North America. By going all in on volume and quality, they placed themselves directly in the path of inevitable growth. Buyouts followed not for ego, but as tactical strikes to remove weakness. Every deal boosted their leverage. Every gamble tightened their grip. Eventually, the firm stopped reacting to the market and began dictating it, embedding the family into the very hardware of modern Canada. The speed of their rise was the real danger. Rapid expansion magnifies errors just as quickly as it scales up wins. One poor acquisition or a misjudged economic cycle could have brought the whole structure down. Yet, discipline held the line. They trimmed operations, managed debt, and swallowed up rivals. Over time, their steel supported more than just skyscrapers. It supported clout. As highways lengthened and towers rose, their products were already embedded unseen but indispensable. That is how a dynasty becomes inescapable without ever seeking the spotlight. The takeaway from the Ziegelman ascent is both straightforward and unnerving. Real power doesn't require applause, it requires positioning. By integrating themselves into the systems everyone relies on, they guaranteed their relevance long after fads passed. In the narrative of Canadian economics, steel wasn't merely a trade, it was a ticket to immortality. Certain types of authority scream for attention, with high-rises and press releases. Others function behind frosted glass, in meeting rooms where cameras are banned. That is the realm where the Singer family cultivated their reach. Their game plan wasn't loud, frantic, or dramatic. It was clinical. One property at a time, one contract at a time, this clan pieced together a kingdom meant to be experienced, not watched. While other developers sought fame with iconic skyscrapers, the Singers zeroed in on dominance. They targeted office blocks, government leases, and hotels located where the power brokers worked, not where the tourists snapped photos. Their real estate portfolio silently wound its way around Canada's institutional heart. Whenever corporations hunted for space or federal agencies needed bureaus, the search often ended at a Singer address. This wasn't luck. It was a strategy plotted in decades. For them, ownership wasn't about status. It was about holding the cards. The genius of their method was stability. Governments are slow to move. Bureaucracies rarely pack up and leave. By locking their assets down with long-term tenants and assured demand, they minimized risk while maximizing sway. Markets crashed and rallied, but the rent checks never stopped. During periods of national instability, their holdings stood firm. They endured. Eventually, the Singers evolved beyond being mere developers. They became the infrastructure itself. And once a family achieves that status, evicting them is virtually impossible. The unsettling part of this tale is how stealthy it is. You won't find viral clips, dramatic bankruptcies, or public feuds. Just a steady, quiet gathering of assets. It's the kind of power that doesn't ask for permission because it already owns the floor everyone is standing on. In the annals of Canadian influence, the Singer family demonstrates a vital principle. The quietest rooms are often where the loudest decisions are made. Most builders construct projects. The Germesian clan constructed entire ecosystems. When they landed in Canada, their goals weren't immediately apparent. Selling rugs was just the starting line, not the end game. What distinguished this dynasty was a unique perspective on space. Where others saw vacant lots and brutal winters, they saw potential on a massive, almost reckless scale. They didn't want to fit into existing cities. They intended to rewrite the rules of how people lived in them. Their game changer was a radical concept. Retail as an immersive experience, shopping as theater. Instead of standard storefront rows, they envisioned environments where visitors lingered for hours or even days. The debut of this vision shocked the doubters. An indoor universe blending sales, rides, and spectacle emerged in a location nobody expected to draw global eyes. Critics labeled it overkill. Bankers called it a gamble, but the masses arrived. What followed was duplication, growth, and polishing, proving that a family willing to bet the farm on size could actually shift consumer psychology. These weren't just profitable ventures. They shifted the center of gravity for entire cities. Tourism patterns changed, roads and utilities followed. Whole regional economies realigned themselves around destinations that hadn't existed previously. The Ghermesian strategy forced municipalities to adjust to them, rather than the reverse. That is a rare flip of the power dynamic, and it only succeeds when patience, funding, and vision are perfectly synced within a family that masters timing just as well as they master imagination. You can't measure their legacy just by checking square footage or sales receipts. It's defined by how completely they flip the script on expectations. They showed the world that folks aren't just looking to buy stuff, they're looking for an experience. And once that idea clicked, the retail game changed forever. Some empires are built in stuffy boardrooms. Others are forged in places where crowds scream and cheer. The Cat saga sits right at the intersection. It didn't start with real estate or sports, but with medicine, drugstores, logistics. Margins so razor thin they required absolute perfection. What looked like a boring, safe business turned into the war chest for a massive vision. For this family, healthcare wasn't the finish line. It was the launch pad. As the pharmacy chain exploded, so did their clout. Systems got tighter, competitors got swallowed up. The cash flow became rock solid, and that stability bought them options. That's when the real pivot happened. Instead of just plowing money back into safe bets, the Cat's crew shifted toward identity. A sports franchise isn't just an asset on a balance sheet, it's emotional infrastructure. By picking up a legendary hockey team, they didn't just buy entertainment. They bought loyalty, a storyline, and a direct line to the city's heart. That's how you turn cold hard cash into permanence. But owning the team was just the hook. The real transformation came next. They built an entire ecosystem around the arena, hotels, office blocks, condos, public squares. They took a fragmented mess and gave it a heartbeat. This wasn't just a skyline change. It rerouted the traffic, the money, and the attention of the whole town. Critics hated the size of it. Fans loved the revival. But either way, the city changed forever. And once a family digs itself into the daily grind like that, they aren't going anywhere. The lesson here is subtle but heavy. Influence spreads fastest when you mix what people need with what they feel. Medicine keeps you breathing. Sports make you shout. Put them together, and you don't just stack cash. You build a relevance that survives the market, crashes, the politics, and the headlines. The internet opened up a wild west where speed beat tradition every time, and hesitation meant death. That's where the Schienberg family pushed their chips in. While the old guard laughed off online gambling as a niche fad, these guys saw the future. Infinite scale. A digital casino where millions could sit at the table at once, with money moving faster than the laws could catch up. It was bold, controversial, and hanging out over the edge. Growth was explosive, almost too explosive. Users piled in, revenue skyrocketed. But digital empires paint a target on their backs the second they get too big. The legal hammers dropped. Markets shut down overnight. Competitors folded under the pressure. For a hot minute, everything this family built was balancing on a razor's edge. One slip could kill the trust. And online, trust is the only currency that counts. They didn't run. They doubled down on discipline. They paid the players. They kept the servers humming. While rivals vanished, their platform stood tall. That grit shifted the balance of power. Survival turned into dominance. When the smoke cleared, they consolidated the market and cashed out at a level most tech founders only dream of. In one generation, they turned code into billions, proving that in new industries, you earn your stripes under pressure, not just through innovation. The Schienberg story drops a serious truth bomb. In the digital age, power isn't about being first to the party. It's about being the last one standing when the lights go out. People think philanthropy is just generosity, but at the elite level, it's pure strategy. The Azrieli family got this. Their story starts with survival in a world trying to wipe them out. That pressure created a mindset obsessed with building things that last. Architecture wasn't just a job, it was proof of life. For this family, pouring concrete was their answer to history. They started small, but the ambition ramped up fast. Apartment blocks turned into shopping malls, local projects became icons. Every building boosted their credit, and credit unlocked more cash. Eventually, they reshaped skylines way beyond Canada. But the real differentiator was the second empire they built alongside the real estate, an empire of memory, education, and influence. Instead of just sprinkling cash around, they funneled it into foundations built to outlive everyone. Money poured into science, universities, and preserving history. This wasn't feel-good charity. It was engineered legacy. By attaching their giving to major institutions, the Azrieli name got woven into the intellectual backbone of the nation. Long after the buildings get old, that influence sticks. That's how you turn capital into continuity. Their playbook flips the script. Giving at this level isn't the end of the road. It's an expansion into a new kind of power, one that doesn't crash with the stock market and can't be torn down. By transferring wealth into meaning, the Azrieli family bought the one thing money usually can't buy: endurance. Few business sagas pack the emotional punch of the Reichmans. Their rise was rocky, and their fall was loud. It started with displacement, faith, and a refusal to sell out their identity. When they rebuilt, they did it with military discipline. First tiles, then buildings, then whole neighborhoods. What followed was one of the most aggressive real estate runs the world had ever seen, driven by the belief that getting huge was the only way to stay safe. At the top of their game, they owned the skylines of 3 continents. Financial hubs, iconic towers, they had their fingerprints everywhere. Their confidence was off the charts. The deals got massive. The debt got heavy. Then the music stopped. Markets tanked. Credit dried up. Decades of work unraveled in a heartbeat. Bankruptcy wiped out an empire that looked invincible. For most folks, that's the end of the movie. But not for this family. What makes the Reichman story legendary is the sequel. Against all odds, they came back. They rebuilt the capital. They renegotiated the trust. They bought back the projects they lost and finished the job. It wasn't total dominance this time, but it was redemption. They proved that going broke doesn't make you stupid, it just clears the illusions. Their journey is a warning and a masterclass. Ambition without timing kills you, but resilience can bring you back from the dead. In the mythology of Canadian business, the Reichmans represent the full spectrum: unchecked ascent, catastrophic collapse, and a recovery built on a humility that few emperors ever learn. The Bronfman tale is the final piece of the puzzle. It shows how you build power on the low, scale it across generations, and how fast it crumbles when you get cocky. From day one, this family mastered timing. While everyone else was reacting, they were positioning, turning regulations, patience, and leverage into a dynasty. What started as a tight ship in the spirits game turned into the engine for a massive conglomerate. The booze money-fueled moves into banking, resources, and media. Over time, their influence went from transactional to structural. The market moved around them. Institutions leaned on them. For decades, they weren't just powerful, they were part of the furniture of the Canadian economy. But size has a dark side. Complexity leaves you exposed. One strategic call made with too much certainty and not enough caution changed everything. They traded control for stock value, and when the winds shifted, that value evaporated. Decades of dominance unraveled faster than anyone thought possible. Empires take generations to build but can fall in a single afternoon, and this family learned that lesson on the main stage. But the story doesn't end in the rubble. It evolves. The influence moved from corporations to culture, from the boardroom to the foundation. Philanthropy, diplomacy, and heritage replaced direct control. In that shift lies the final lesson. Wealth is temporary, but impact is a choice. Looking back at every family we've covered, there's a pattern. Power loves patience. Timing beats size every time. And responsibility is the difference between a legacy that dies and one that survives. If this deep dive changed how you look at power, hit that subscribe button, like the video, and share it around. Let us know in the comments which family story stuck with you the most.